I'm Tay, and I'm an addict.
And I'm Steve, and I'm an addict.
And this is Chaos in Recovery,
A podcast aimed towards mental health and addiction in a chaotic world. And today we have a very special guest, our good friend CJ, who we have met just a few short months ago. But I feel like we've known each other for a very long time.
Agreed. Hi, guys. I'm CJ, and I'm an addict in recovery.
Now, I want to start out this podcast by having full disclosure. I made a boo-boo. We had asked CJ to be our first guest on Chaos in Recovery for so many different reasons. CJ, for both of me and Tay, has been like a very interesting person watching him grow in recovery. Now, the three of us had gone through an outpatient program that me and Tay had graduated from recently, and CJ is still at the tail end of it right now.
Correct.
And there was so much that attracted us to you. But what I was getting at with the full disclosure is we had shot this podcast episode 2 weeks ago. Amazing. It was such an organic and interesting conversation, and it was our first time with a guest, and
it was rad.
Yeah,
the audio was amazing.
It was great. Yeah, and unfortunately, the SD card that we had in the video camera got corrupted. We lost all the video footage. I tried all night. I was up till 3 a.m.
He was.
Trying to figure this thing out.
I believe it.
Your thing.
Oh, my God. All right, moving on. Keep going.
And for me, I was devastated because it was like I fucked up again. Like all the feelings of you're not good enough, shame, guilt. Yeah. In my mind, these guys are going to be so pissed off at me as far as you and Tay. Yeah, it was a painful night for me. But I texted both of them the next morning and let them know. And CJ responded with, well, the way I look at it is that was the best dress rehearsal I could have gotten.
Yeah, when I got your text, I could feel your energy. And I know if I was in your position, how it would feel. You know, I deal with a lot of the shame, especially for what I perceive as failure.
Yeah.
If I think I fail, like, it is just the end of my world, still to this day, you know? And so when I got that message and I saw you were so apologetic, I was like, you know what? It's the best dress rehearsal ever. You know what I mean? And especially after I heard the audio, and it was just awesome. And
it was the best response that you could have given.
Well, it was natural, and the way I look at it is like I get to do this again because I got so much from the first time that like it's awesome.
You know what the best part about it is, like, it's not gonna be the same, like, and it's still gonna be authentic.
Yeah,
like, we can still, like, it's gonna be great.
Yeah. You know what I was gonna do? I was gonna listen to the first one before I came, and I'm like, you know what? Exactly what made the first one so awesome will not ruin this one, but it'll take away from it.
Yeah.
It was just us talking.
And that's what it is.
Yeah, so I didn't listen to it before I came. You know what I mean? 'Cause I don't, so.
No, but because we are doing this again, we obviously want people to know a little bit about you. So we're gonna kind of dive in and see what how long you've been in recovery for.
So yeah, I've been in recovery for 4 months. Yeah, it's like about 120 days.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, just recently celebrated it. So it's been a crazy ride, being in recovery from, the first day to today. When I got to our outpatient program, I was beyond desperation. The first step is recognizing that you're powerless, and the last night that I ever used, it was a clear indication. I was out of control. It was just, so when I got there, it was pure desperation. I just needed, and knew I couldn't help myself. You know what I mean? And so it's just been amazing being there. You know what I mean?
Is that your first time getting any type of treatment?
No. So I had gone to a rehab in Florida. It was only like 2 weeks, and then my insurance kicked me out. it was really like a country club. We played volleyball and did a lot of swimming.
Yeah.
And then I was only there for like 2.5 weeks, so like the AA group would come once a week.
Wow.
And so it was like really just for like my family to see I was doing well.
Yeah.
And I just didn't take it seriously. I didn't even. There's just now doing this. There's so much I realized I didn't know, and there wasn't any real therapy. You know what I mean? Where you're getting to the heart of things. So that was like 2.5 weeks. I did spend a decent amount of time at a Christian rehab, but again, I learned a lot. I made a lot of close friends that I still have to this day.
Love that.
But I just wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I wasn't completely ready to. I had a lot of reservations. You know what I mean? So this is the first time I've done real therapy, real group therapy, and it's just been. I think because of where we are and where we went, and also how ready I am and how I know this. It's time for a new life. It's time for some freedom. I think it's just all moving in the right direction, and I'm just really getting so much out of it.
So jumping from like a place where they barely had any therapy to like going into an intensive outpatient program that has tons of therapy.
When they call this IOP, intensive outpatient therapy, they're not joking.
No.
It is raw, it's real, and the therapists are just amazing.
It's like a climate change.
You're not kidding. The therapists are like amazing. And one thing I like about it is the variety of therapists.
Yeah.
You're not getting the same thing all the time. Some of our therapists are like very, getting to the heart of the matter, really digging. Other ones we're doing lighter stuff. It's just it's the variety, and it's just really awesome. I can't say enough good things about that place.
Yeah, I for people that don't know, the IOP that we were involved in, we were literally there 5 days a week from 9 a.m. till 2:30. That was your jumping off point. That's what you walked in the door. That was your starting treatment.
Yep.
And so in the morning there was 3 hours of group therapy, an hour for lunch, an hour and a half of group therapy. And a lot of people go through the detox, go through the rehabs, and then don't follow up with their aftercare with an IOP or a drug counselor and stuff. And for a person like me who was constantly in and out of detoxes and rehabs, this program, being in an outpatient in a partial hospitalization program, was pivotal for me in learning about why I use drugs and alcohol. Not just to remove drugs and alcohol from my life, but to start to learn how to grow and start to become the person that I want to be, how to interact with other people, how to take critical, constructive criticism, like all of these things that I didn't want to think about while in active use were all brought up to me in this program, and I'm sure that both of you too.
Yeah, 100%. I just looked at it completely wrong.
Yeah.
I had so much shame over my addiction because I was just looking at it from a certain angle, and I had it all wrong. Drugs and alcohol eventually were my problem, but they started off as my solution.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was so much in here, so much underneath that was making me want to escape my life, escape the world, escape being with myself.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I didn't realize any of that. I had so much shame over, I don't love my children enough. I don't love my family enough. I don't love this enough to have the willpower not to do this. And I've learned so many things in our treatment, just about the brain, about patterns, just so many different things that just seeing it from the right angle, realizing so many things, it's taking the shame away. It's helping me learn, and it's just been amazing.
And also learning about like the whole disease aspect of
100,
it, like being able to understand like the science behind all of it. And it's really hard to go in thinking that you're an alcoholic or an addict. That's like the one thing people don't want to call themselves,
yes.
because the stigma is so bad.
Absolutely.
With it. But I think what Steve is saying is super important to be known, that like that outpatient program was intense. Like that was copious amounts of therapy, group therapy, one-on-one therapy, but it was necessary. It was needed to figure out your shit pretty much.
100%.
Yeah. So that being your first time in real treatment, do you feel like you've come a long way from when you stepped in those doors?
Let me tell you, just inside of myself, I'm excited for the future because how much has happened within me in 4 months. I never, ever, ever thought, I thought there could be a day where I wouldn't use drugs and alcohol. But to have real freedom, you know what I mean? And I'm just starting to get a glimpse of it now. I haven't arrived anywhere.
Sure.
But just being alone with myself, just being having some type of being content. I just never, this therapy has just done crazy things for me, It's just been amazing.
Yeah. Now, I know for me, a big part of my growth in recovery was learning to re-love yourself, or just learning to love yourself. Because I know for me, before I even put a drug or a drink into my system, I wasn't really in love with who I was. I was always thought I was less than, always thought I couldn't get the girls I wanted, always thought that I wasn't making the right decision, not smart enough, not handsome enough, not likable enough, all of these things. And for me, drugs and alcohol made me be okay with that and shut the fucking noise up. Yeah. And then, so I really didn't have any growth in trying to re-love myself.
Yeah.
And so, how has this journey, this most recent journey in sobriety and recovery, affected a lot of the things like shame, guilt, and re-loving yourself for you?
Yeah, I just didn't think much of myself. Growing up, I just was never very comfortable in my skin. I just didn't think much of myself unless I was achieving.
Yeah.
Growing up, I did really well in school, played sports, was president of my class, excelled in martial arts, and just all that stuff. That was the only time I ever felt good about myself. And when those things weren't there, I would go back to my default, which is feeling horrible about myself. You know what I mean? And being in treatment and just really seeing my life for what it has been, the good and the bad, has taken away a lot of that shame. Before I came to treatment, I used to always say I'm a bad person. I really believed it. I'm a bad person. I just thought because I had failed at so much, because of the bad things I had done, I was a bad person. And I think about a month and a half in, I remember feeling well, you're not a bad person. I didn't think I was a good person, but I remember just that one shift being you know what? You're not a bad person.
Sure.
You do have value. Because I honestly thought my only value is in what I had, the accomplishments I did. That's where I based my value on what everybody else thought of me.
Yeah.
And that's all I cared about so much. And in treatment, that's just beginning to shift.
Yeah.
Today I can say I am a good person.
Yeah.
I've done some bad things, but I'm a good person. I have value, and it's not in what job I have, my accomplishments, how people think I look, how people think I speak. It's just in me.
Yeah.
Do you still recall that shift? Do you remember when that shift happened?
With thinking I'm a good person, I don't. It's it was just
it's just one day.
Yeah, just one day. And where I saw it is how I talk to myself on the inside.
Yeah.
I used to just talk to myself horribly, very damning. You did this, you think this, you're angry, you shouldn't be angry, you're jealous, you shouldn't be jealous. And when I learned that a lot of my behaviors, a lot of the ways that I talked to myself, I developed when I was a kid. And I did it to protect myself in different ways. But what I did was I kept those same behaviors that became toxic, that became bad for my life, because my brain didn't know you don't have to do that anymore. And when I learned, I'm still learning that I don't have to do that. And I started speaking to myself the way I speak to my children. When my son or my daughter, they get in trouble or they make a mistake or something, I'm just really understanding. I'm thinking about, all right, how are we going to learn from this? like my only job is to make them a better person and make them grow from whatever happens. And when I started treating myself that same way, that's when everything it switched.
That's going to take off with them too.
Yeah, it switched for me, and I'm just easier with myself. I realize that if I'm feeling an emotion, even if it's negative, just feel it.
Yeah.
Feel it. Don't react to it. Feel it. And just being easy with myself suddenly was like a huge turning point in my life.
I love that. Now you have 2 kids.
I do.
Tell us
I do.
them.
So I have Brady and Naya. They're so different. I just love them both so much. My son is awesome. He's an amazing artist. He's just like my buddy, you know. I just love thinking about, like, you know, his whole life. You know, we've just experienced so much together. Obviously, I'm his father, but yeah, he's very sensitive. You know, he's a little bit quiet, super hilarious, really tall. He's like 10 and almost like 5'5" or something like that. 11, 5'5", you know, and yeah, I just love him so much. He doesn't like this, and if he ever sees this, he'll be older, so he probably won't get mad. But I call him my baby Brady.
Oh.
You know, I love my baby Brady. Naya is she's my hero. You know, she's been through so much. We've been through so much together, and she's just my hero. She's wonderful. She's so much like me.
Yeah.
Good and bad. You know, she even says it. She's like my twin. That's why she tries to get sneaky and get away with stuff. I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, what would I do in this situation?
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy. You know, my relationship with my son is always growing, and it's gotten better. But my relationship with my daughter in these past 4 months has just blossomed to something, like, I'll get choked up, like, even talking or thinking about it. I never expected. You know what I mean? Like, it's just growing so much. She's going through so much right now. We both see people and get counseling and therapy, and it's just been amazing. It's just been amazing. When at the end of my addiction, before I got help, I was like, man, am I gonna lose her forever? Am I gonna lose her? And you know, that was like painful.
So is it changed because, has your relationship changed because of sobriety, or because
because
things happen?
Because of sobriety, and we're just getting closer.
Yeah.
You know, but sobriety was huge. I would miss calls. I would miss things. You know what I mean? And even if you hadn't done drugs and drank that particular time you're talking to them, it's still affecting you.
Yeah.
I wasn't all the way present. You know what I mean? In those times, and now I am.
Yeah.
Now I am, and it's just a joy to interact with her and just to be her father. She's like amazing.
What do they know about your recovery?
So my son doesn't know much. He's much more innocent, and I think later on down the line, when he's turning into a teenager and this stuff comes up, I'm going to share with him. My daughter does know. My daughter's like, you know, girls mature faster than boys. My daughter does know that there's stuff up with me. I went from being in her life full time to kind of like away. So I tell her I go to therapy. She sees a counselor, and I kind of talk to her about that. Like, oh, we're both getting better. We're both like, you know, I talk to her about how it's good to get out the stuff that's inside you, to speak it. And I tell her I'm doing the same thing. You know, she's kind of like, this year been hanging out with the wrong crowd a little bit, not into drugs or anything like that. So I think this conversation is going to come up pretty soon.
Yeah.
I won't tell her everything because I want to tell her everything, but what's the best for her and what's the best for my son?
Yeah.
And I think those opportunities will present themselves.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they're gonna experience whatever they experience.
Yeah, and you know, here's the thing: genes play a big role in addiction.
Yeah.
So when the time is right, they definitely. I want them to hear it from me, because addiction runs in my family, and so they are at risk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
I
want to talk.
That's smart.
Yeah, I want to talk to them about, you know, when I started using drugs and why, and they might relate if their friends are using drugs and they're thinking about it, you know. And I want it to be an open conversation, not just don't do drugs.
Yeah.
You know. And I think I have a lot of wisdom when it comes to addiction now, you know what I mean? And I'll be able to talk to them openly about it. And they'll be able to be open with me without the fear of judgment.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So your daughter understands a lot, you know?
She does. Yeah, she does. She, you know, I've talked about it before, but she was in a horrible accident with her mom, and her mom passed. You know, and my daughter...
What type of accident?
It was a car accident, thank you. So it was a bad car accident. They went off the highway, and the car rolled over. Her mom passed, and my daughter just had horrible injuries. Both legs broken, ribs, neck fracture. Her arm was almost severed.
Oh my
It was
God.
like as bad. And we spent we spent weeks in the hospital. And it was just getting her better. I think while in the hospital, maybe 10 to 12 surgeries, so I was sleeping there.
Wow.
And then when we got her out of the hospital, we stayed with her aunt, her mom's sister, and the husband, who are amazing. Just, I can't say enough good things about them. But it was like, I literally had to carry her everywhere. To bring her to doctor's appointments, the way there were stairs, so I had to carry her from the thing out to the truck. But it was a lot of getting to know you. You know what I mean? It was like, and so we went from that to my addiction kicked up after that. After she was physically more healthy, which by the way, she's made a complete recovery.
It's amazing.
She's an amazing softball player. She pitches with the same arm that was almost severed. Like, she's an amazing kid.
What? Awesome. That's crazy.
She's an amazing kid. But once she got healthy, there was more time. All of a sudden, I had all this time on my hands, and all this stuff flooded into my brain. And that's when my addiction kind of kicked up.
Well, that must have been traumatic for you
Yeah.
as well.
So there was so much to it,
Yeah.
And so I went from being completely present to I started drinking and using. I thought on the down low, and it was just honestly, I was having nightmares. I went through so much when I was a kid, and I felt like I had to grow up too young, and I kept thinking about, she's gonna have to do the same thing. I thought about, there was some things that led to the accident. How could I have done something different? Could I have, just all these things. And I couldn't, I just couldn't take it. And again, drugs and alcohol were my solution. So basically, she went from having me be at her beck and call, and I slowly just started drifting to where I was just completely away. And then the guilt of that.
Of course.
When she heals physically, that's when almost the real work starts of all the stuff of losing her mom and leaving her, and just the shame of that. So, she knows something happened. She knows something was up.
So she doesn't
to answer
know
your
the
question.
whole...
But not the whole thing. You know what? She's so smart, though.
Yeah.
And people, I'm sure there's been conversations about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she knows more than I think she knows, all kids do. But I know that that's a conversation. Right now, she's in Florida, my son's in Florida, and I'm here in Rhode Island.
Oh, wow.
So that's a conversation. Now that I'm getting down to my time at treatment, I'm going to be visiting more. And that's a conversation that I definitely want to have with her, especially being in middle school. You know what happens in middle school. So,
Yeah, knowledge gets quick, man.
Yes.
Especially with social media, the internet, and stuff like that. Kids aren't dumb.
No, they're not.
They're not. I have a 12-year-old son who lives in Florida also.
Cool.
And me and his mother are very upfront and honest. He was living with me for a very long time while he was a young kid, and right when I started getting bad into my addiction, his mother kind of took the reins over, thankfully. And, I held a lot of shame towards that and a lot of guilt because, I didn't give him the best childhood, I don't think. And because I was too consumed with my addiction and also myself.
Yes.
And so it's taken me a very long time to work on forgiving myself for the way I was a father to him, and it's still working. I mean, I still hold a lot of resentment towards myself because of it. How did you, what were your first encounters with drugs and alcohol?
Before I answer that, I just want to say I relate to what you said so much. I love my children, and our relationships are so cool, but drugs and alcohol and the drug of me,
Sure.
has got in the way of my relationships with both of my children through the years.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's something that I struggle with still, the shame of that.
Yeah.
So I just, I really, really relate to that. And now, it's about rebuilding.
Yeah.
Rebuilding everything, including my son's mother, rebuilding my relationship with her, having her trust me. You know what I mean? And all that stuff. And, Yeah, so that's something that really resonates with me.
Yeah, I just want to comment. Like, when I share at meetings, I always have to share this what I'm about to say because it reminds me of where I am when I use drugs and alcohol. But like, I love drugs and alcohol more than my children when I am not in recovery, and I've proven that time and time again. And for me, it's very tough. It was very tough to admit that.
Yeah.
But that is my reality. When I put a substance into my body, nothing else matters besides myself and that substance.
That's a tough thing. That's a tough thing to admit to. Like, it's hard, and it causes a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, just a lot of, and then it goes back to that willpower thing. I don't love my family enough to, you know what I mean? And that causes a lot of shame. That resonates with me a lot.
Yeah.
To get back to what you were saying, your question, the first time I ever tried alcohol, I was about 4 or 5 years old, actually. It didn't turn into me drinking all the time.
Sure.
My parents would have occasional weekend parties.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the exact details, but I remember how I was feeling. I was curious because I would always see, I would stay up a little bit and kind of sneak out of my room and look and see the people drinking. And, my father's Dominican, and like that's a very party lifestyle, so I always saw people drinking and stuff. But I remember they were sleeping. A few drinks were left out, and I drank some of it.
Yeah.
What I remember happening, I don't remember feeling drunk or anything like that, but I remember I didn't realize I had so much tension in me.
Yeah.
But the effect of all the tension going away, and I went and laid in my bed, I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
I remember feeling better, And I think that happened one other time, same thing. And it didn't party all the time, but it was another weekend party. I found an extra drink that was left out and did it again. And I remember both times it made me feel better. When I started really experimenting, I was about 14. Tried weed, alcohol. I think my father let me drink a beer one time, but really drinking was with just friends. You know what I mean? And again, that I enjoyed how it made me feel, and I enjoyed how it took me away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that use escalated pretty quickly. Just trying all these different things, acid, mushrooms.
Of course.
You know what I mean? It always escalated, and honestly, there was so much tension and chaos in my house when I was a teenager. My parents just had a lot of problems. That it was hanging out with my friends and being happy and partying and getting out of that environment of my house that was also appealing.
Yeah.
But throughout my life, drugs and partying taking me away from first my house, but then my problems, until at the end I just didn't want life. And I just wanted to be away from that, That was like kind of the progression.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I heard a rumor that you were in the restaurant industry.
Yeah. So throughout my life, I served and bartended different places. My dad also, when I was, I think, a teenager, he bought a restaurant. You know what I mean? We kind of revamped it, did the whole inside. Fun. Yeah, it was cool. It was cool building a restaurant from like the ground up. I helped him a little bit, but I didn't really work in that restaurant. But like I said before, I served and bartended for a long time. I honestly, especially when I was in party mode, I love that lifestyle because you work hard, you play hard.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you work late nights, everybody gets together after.
Sure.
Made a lot of good friends, made a lot of bad friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Doing that, but yeah, I did that sporadically throughout my life.
Oh, that's cool. When did you stop waiting tables or bartending?
Well, let's see. I stopped for a while, especially when I went into business for myself. But I did again during COVID, like right after. So right, it was actually right before COVID. Some stuff happened. I had to close what I was doing, and so I served. I was in Tampa, Florida, and that was the last time I served, and that was like 5 years ago, something like that, 6 years ago.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
What kind of restaurant was your dad's restaurant?
It was Dominican. Dominican food. I was awesome. So the food was really good. We had like this lunch special, and on like Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays, it would turn into like a nightclub at night. They would like move the tables,
so
and
fun.
People would be dancing there. It was fun. It was loud. If you know anything about Dominican culture, we're loud.
How old were you then?
Let's see. I went from I think I was late teens, maybe early 20s, like that, and it went all the way to probably I think about 10 years ago.
I can only think about if I was implanted into that situation in your shoes, my ego would have been fucking through the roof. This is my nightclub. Fucking.
There was a lot. Let me tell you, there was times where I wasn't even involved with it, but I'd be like, "Come to my." But I was always like real proud. He was my father.
Yeah.
You know? This is my dad's place, and like and all that stuff. And my dad suffers from the same problem of ego that we do.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So my dad and I, we always say there's no camera, microphone, or audience that we don't love.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. And so my dad loved being the center of attention, and there was good and bad to that. It did cause a lot of problems in the house.
Sure.
You know what I mean? My mom wasn't on board all the time, which she definitely had reason to feel that way. And but it was cool being him. I liked it.
What's your relationship like with your dad?
I love my dad. Just to tell you a little bit more about my dad, he's a first generation Dominican immigrant. His father came to this country, worked hard, brought his family here, and my father continued that hard work. Growing up though, my dad he always kind of was doing his own thing. He worked hard. You know what I mean? He was so fun to be around. He's very funny, very lively, like life of the party. Everybody loves Claudio. That's my dad. And
I love that name.
Yeah. Well, I'm CJ Claudio Jr. So yeah.
There we go.
But he just, he wasn't present a lot. He was kind of always doing his own thing. Like, I was actually journaling about how my biggest memory of my father when I was a small child was actually talking to him on the phone when he was in the Dominican Republic and missing him.
Oh, wow.
I saw him a lot more as I get older, but he kind of was always gone on the weekends. You know what I mean? And my father and I have talked a lot, but like one of the things I think that I was just journaling about this, so that's why I'm talking about this first, is I wish I would have got to know him better. When I talk to him, it's very pleasant. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Is that mine?
Yeah.
Okay, well, keep going. Sorry.
Where should I go from? You just start over. Yeah. Whatever.
Okay. What's your relationship like with your dad?
It's okay. It's decent, I would say. Just to tell you more about my dad, he's a first generation Dominican immigrant. You know what I mean? Hard worker. His father came from the Dominican Republic, worked hard, brought his family here. My dad came here when he was 15. Just always been a very hard worker. Everybody loves Claudio. That's my dad's name. And he's just very gregarious and very lively, life of the party, you know what I mean? But I just don't feel like him and I ever had a really close relationship. I always heard the good stories about him, and I talk about this, like I said, because I was just journaling about this. It's fresh in my mind. But I never heard of any of his, like, defeats. You know what I mean? And I feel like I never got to know the real him, and I really desire that.
Yeah.
When I talk to my dad every message, it's kind of like small talk. You know what I mean? Which it makes me sad. You know what I mean? But we just never, and that said, he's always been, good to me. You know what I mean? He did some things wrong, like all parents do.
Sure.
I think him always being gone and always kind of doing his own thing on the weekends and all that stuff really affected me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we have the best relationship we possibly can now. You know what I mean? It's something I desire to improve. I want to get to know him more.
Yeah.
I want him to get to know me better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? More than just a surface level, which is kind of how it is right now.
Do you guys talk a lot right now, or?
Not really.
No.
No, he's in the Dominican Republic. He moved back to the Dominican Republic. We message back and forth every once in a while. He sends me TikTok videos. He discovered TikTok, so when your parents discover something,
yeah.
and then they send it. So we message a little bit, but again, it's a lot of small talk.
Yeah.
And I desire more. One of the things I've been struggling with is I want to eventually. I don't think I'm there yet with me, with just being secure enough to do it the right way. But eventually, I want to talk to him. Maybe start with a letter, telling him how I feel, how I never really feel like I really got to know him, and I want that.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I think it'll be good for him and I, but it will make me a better father too.
Oh, I love that.
Because I see myself in the past following a lot of my father's patterns.
Sure.
With my kids.
Yeah.
And, it's our job as kids to do better than our parents. And I think, just improving my relationship with my father and my mom will make me a better parent. And also, like, they're getting older. I want to have a relationship with them.
Now, why don't you think you're ready to write that letter to them?
Because, part of my therapy was seeing my parents for who they were, the good and the bad.
Sure.
When I first got to treatment, I remember I was asked, tell me about your family. And I was like, I had a pretty normal childhood.
Yeah.
As I did treatment more, I realized it wasn't normal.
Yeah.
There was a lot of problematic things. So when I first started that, going into that, I just kind of demonized everything. It was all my parents' fault, and and all that stuff. And then came some and then came some understanding.
Yeah.
And then came thinking about their childhoods. I think both of my parents, they had different types of childhoods, but I think both of their childhood obviously affected them in the way they parented.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've been going through all that. Sorry, what was your original question?
Why don't you think
thank you.
ready?
Thank you. I went off on a tangent there. So with both of my parents, I want things from them in our relationship that I don't know if they can give me. You know what I mean? And so with me, I would always, especially with my mom, I would talk to her and go into a conversation wanting to get a certain thing. And then when she didn't give me that thing, I would resent her for it.
Sure. Yeah.
Without even really discussing that actual thing. You know what I mean? Without telling her and being completely open and honest. And my mom and I have butted heads. And I think still to this day, I'll still go in not being completely open and just letting what is be. And I'll still have those expectations, some of them unreasonable. And when they don't meet that, so I want to wait to really talk to them about everything, to really, with my mom, when I was really young, her and I were so close.
Yeah.
So close. I journaled about this too. One of my favorite memories of my mom was I was about 3 or 4 years old. I had the worst stomach ache. And I just remember so distinctly the pain. And I was laying in her bed, and I remember her coming over and started rubbing my stomach in a circular motion. And it was like a miracle. Like, I could feel my stomach ache go away.
Sure.
So when we were young, my father was always gone, and it was me, my brother, and my mom. And so we were so close. And I think through the years, it was a lot of things that created a distance. I think it was me getting older. I know that her relationship with my father and all the trouble there really affected her. I think some of her childhood, she went through things when she was a child, growing up in her family. I think that affected her. I was turning into a teenager with distance. I think I harbored some resentment towards her for some reason. Some of the resentment was warranted, but some of them was just, I was confused, And so through the years, we just grew more and more apart to, as an adult, we've been oil and water sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you have an older brother or a younger brother?
I have a younger brother.
Younger brother.
Okay. When I think about my childhood, it reminds me of the Charles Dickens book, Tale of Two Cities.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
The first line is, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. You know what I mean? And it talks about the duality of suffering. It was London and Paris, and how both cities, there was suffering, but also so much happiness.
Yeah.
And I always think about my childhood, like it was really good and really bad, but with my brother, it was all good. I'm so thankful for him. When we've just been, when we were young, we were like best friends, like inseparable. And, I just can't imagine doing my life without my brother. Through the years of my addiction, he's always supported me. He's always been there for me. It's been me who kind of pushed away.
Yeah.
It was shame. I didn't want him to see me like that.
Wow.
And I didn't, and there was a whole bunch of reasons, but I've lied to him. I've done so many terrible things, and he's never stopped supporting me.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I've said it a million times. He's honestly the best human being I know, and he still supports me to this day. And, when I was first in treatment, not a lot of people wanted to talk to me. You know what I mean? And even I felt reservations from my brother.
Yeah.
But even though there was a reservations there, he supported me. And just knowing that after all the bad things I've done, he was still in my corner, that gave me strength on days I didn't have it. You know what I mean? So I just can't say enough good things about my brother. He's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome.
When you say, like, people didn't want to talk to you, like, as far as, like, family and close friends and stuff?
You know, as that came out of my mouth, I don't think I was being honest right there.
Okay.
I think I had so much shame that I didn't want to talk to them as much as they didn't want to talk to me.
I can see
I
that.
was perceiving it as no one wanted to talk to me because you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was a true statement. You know, I know I was avoiding people.
I like that you just backtracked on
Yeah,
that.
I have to do that a lot in my head and to people.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you know what? It's
That's
like
recovery,
I've
man.
lied. That's recovery.
That's
I've
recovery.
lied so much in my life. And now I notice I'm not doing outright lies, but I'm doing what it plays in my head.
Yeah.
And then something in my head would be like, that's not
And
how
they're
it
not
was.
intentional. It's
They're not
just
intentional.
like what
it's
we're
how I
used
perceived
to.
it.
Yeah.
It's how I perceived it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I have to a lot in my life. Like, wait a second, it's embarrassing. But like, I realize
No,
the more
it's
I do
not.
it, the more I'm like, wait,
It's
that's not
recovery.
true. I don't know why I said that. The more I do that, the less that happens. So I hope to get to a point where that's few and far between, where I have to be like, wait, stop.
No,
cut,
but I have to
you know?
commend you on that because that's really tough to like go back and do that. So I don't know. I thought
embarrassing.
that was really good. That was
I
really
know.
cool.
I know. For me, fucking lying was one of my worst traits
Yeah.
because, like, I always had to make things seem like they were better than they were.
Absolutely.
And then also on the other end, I also had to defend every action that I was making in active use. So then translating that into like early sobriety, I'm still fucking constantly lying to people.
Yeah.
And like I had a sponsor that said, listen, the only way you're going to start fixing any of that is to the second you tell a lie, like it comes out of your mouth, you instantly have to take accountability and say, look, I'm sorry, but that was a lie.
Great advice.
And I shouldn't have said that. And that was so hard for me because there was such embarrassment related to, you know, confronting somebody right there and then. And most of the time they'd be like, okay, dude, like no problem. But like to get to that point to actually fucking do that was so difficult because I just thought everybody was going to think I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Which I mean, what's worse? A person that is trying to take accountability for a lie or just fucking a liar who keeps on lying.
Yeah.
You know?
I relate to that so much. Most of my life has been lived for other people, for how other people saw me.
Oh, yeah.
I've had some good success in my life at points. You know what I mean? Done some cool things. But it was never enough. I would always, like, exaggerate what I was doing. Over-exaggerate, under-exaggerate, straight out lie. You know what I mean? Just to build myself up.
Yeah.
You know, so in early recovery, I was still trying to do that a little bit. You know what I mean? It's gotten better. A huge thing for me, I don't know about you, was when I was starting to like just who I was, just me with nothing else, just CJ.
Yeah.
That's naturally kind of gone away. It's helped me because I don't need to be this and that for somebody else.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's still there. I
Yeah.
mean, this is a complete work in progress. You know, I have good days and bad days with how I'm feeling about myself. But I notice as my opinion of myself and just knowing my self-worth has grown, that has decreased.
Right.
You know what I mean? My need to...
Outside validation.
Yeah. Oh, I needed it, you know.
Yeah.
Just nothing was ever good enough.
Yeah.
Nothing was ever good enough. You know, and that comes from a small child. I felt that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, with my parents and my childhood, again, this is how I perceived it. I'm still digging into the reality of what it was.
Yeah.
But the way I perceived it was the only time I got attention. The only time I felt I was getting attention is when I won a karate tournament. I got straight A's. I remember my parents so happy when I became president. I remember when I was in 6th grade, my parents were fighting really bad that day, and there was an awards thing at my school, and I think I won like every award that came up, and I just remember seeing their faces and how happy. And I remember we had dinner after together, and it was so. I'm not saying my parents only gave me attention when I succeeded, but that's the way I was feeling. That's the way I perceived it.
Yeah.
And so I needed that validation. I needed someone to say, oh, CJ, you're so smart. You're so, you know, and that just continued throughout my whole life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, validation from other people is a drug.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, when we're
100%.
kids, for somebody to tell us we did a great job or like, you're such a smart boy, or you're such a handsome boy,
Yes.
you're such a beautiful girl. That's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
shit, I'm doing something good.
100%.
Like, I need fucking more of that.
Yeah.
Like, and if I'm not getting it, I'm not living up to where I'm supposed to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. I completely, there's when I was in high school and junior high, I was pretty, in the spotlight a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was president of my class. I played sports. And I remember that I had my own cheer with the cheerleaders, like 3-0, 3-0, yes, CJ, let's go. Like, literally,
Give
but that
it to
stuff
us,
was like,
CJ.
oh my gosh. But that stuff was just ego boosters, but it never lasted. It was never enough.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And here's the thing. Once that stuff went away, once people looking at me went away and I was just left with myself, and when I was just by myself and I didn't have that adoration, it's no wonder the drugs I needed that because I couldn't be alone with myself unless I felt good about myself. I didn't feel good about myself because no one was telling me how awesome I am.
Yeah.
And so.
That came too because you did MMA as well, correct?
Yeah, I did a lot of different martial arts.
Yeah,
Yep.
martial arts. So you did a lot of competitions and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So
yeah.
you must have got that validation.
Oh,
as well.
My father was a martial artist.
Oh wow.
My brother was a martial artist. I was obsessed with Bruce Lee growing up. It's just like we used to watch that's one thing I love. A good memory with my dad is watching Bruce Lee movies and all that stuff. But like I lived martial arts. As a kid, I would go to my karate school multiple times a week. I was like obsessed with it. My karate teacher was a father to me too.
Oh.
Like my karate teacher was like just perfect.
Yeah.
As far as like he was just such a good man, so attentive, hard when he needed to be. His name is Mark West, and he's just amazing. So I was like obsessed with karate. But then I started getting into the competitions.
Yeah.
And I competed for a long time, different parts of my life, and that cheer of the crowd, I just drank it up. But it started with the first karate tournament I won, seeing my father's face.
Wow.
And we all went to dinner after, and my father couldn't stop bragging about me. And getting that validation from my father was like just amazing.
Yeah.
You could juxtapose that though with there was one karate tournament I lost, and I lost really bad. And I remember sitting on the floor, kind of cross-legged and just crying. And I remember my dad was right there, and he wasn't being mean or anything. I don't think he knew how to console me, so he kind of just stood there, not knowing what to do. So that really showed me a lot. The high of succeeding and the complete shame and failure.
Wow.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, competing throughout my life, just that fed my ego. But again, when that wasn't there, when I wasn't in the spotlight, I was alone, and I couldn't be alone with myself.
Yeah, and you had mentioned one time in group that you felt that you could kick your addiction a little bit when you were fighting, right? Or when you were training.
With any purpose I found.
Yeah.
Throughout my life, I've done like a few different cool things. I was in martial arts. I owned I owned a nail salon. You know what I mean? Was married.
You did?
I owned a nail salon.
Oh my God, I love this.
I don't know if I ever told this story, but so I got married, and her family was in nail salons, and we bought a nail salon.
Cool.
And it was cool. I learned how to do nails. At the time.
Wait, I love that.
At the time, I was like, oh, I'm gonna love this.
I love this.
Be around these girls all day, like learn how to do it, and again, I had purpose.
Yeah.
We completely renovated the nail salon.
Cool.
I did all the painting, drywall, got new chairs in, and I had a purpose. I wasn't even thinking about drugs and alcohol. I would go out and have drinks. And so, I learned how to do nails, and
Oh my
it
God,
didn't
I
end
love
up being as awesome as I thought. The new car smell wore off quickly, you know what I mean? But there was other times where I did different things. Eventually, I had a thing called Living Water Martial Arts, where I taught martial arts to kids.
Cool.
I loved, just to go off on a tangent, I loved that because I was doing what my karate teacher did for me.
Sure.
And he just had such a positive and amazing effect on my life. I did that for other kids, you know what I mean? Taught martial arts, taught cardio, kickboxing, trained fighters, it was really, really cool. But again, I had a purpose.
Yeah.
But even that stuff wouldn't last.
Yeah.
It would only last so long, and then, you know what I mean? I would kind of go back. But when I have a purpose, like, oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. See, even right now, I'm coming to the end of my treatment.
Yeah. I was just
This has
about to
been my
ask.
purpose. The real danger I'm going to be in is once I'm doing regular life.
Yeah.
Once I don't have the accountability of 3 drug tests a week. You know what I mean? Like, that's when I lose this purpose. So that's why I need to keep a little purpose in my life of going to meetings.
Yeah.
I just maybe got a sponsor.
Love it.
You know what I
Oh,
mean?
nice.
Doing the steps to give
Wait,
little...
did you get one?
I'm right about there.
He's like 98%.
I know. I've been talking to him the last few days.
Okay.
And we're actually meeting this weekend.
Cool.
So I think he knows, but it's like I'm kind of like flirting with the
It's
girl.
a meet and greet,
Flirting with the
yeah.
girl without asking her out. You know what I mean? That's
Yep.
what I've been doing. But having that, I don't want to find my identity in my purpose, but I want to have purpose, and that's the difference. Because like when I found my identity in doing those different things, once the new car smell wore off, I was back with myself, couldn't deal with it, and went back to drugs and alcohol. I want to have purpose in my life, but it not be my identity. And I think by just continuing recovery, I love the learning, the improving. My brain just goes to that. You know, I've learned so much stuff, and I'm just soaking up all this knowledge. I love that. So that's something I want to continue for the rest of my life. So in that's what's going to keep me sober.
Yeah,
you know
I
what
love
I mean?
that.
Away from everything. Yeah.
I wonder if when you graduate, like, and you get back to life and stuff like that, what are the things that you're gonna do for your recovery? Do you feel like do you have set meetings that you go to ritually? Do you do commitments? Do you speak places? What helps you?
So so basically, what I've been doing is setting myself up for the last 6 weeks.
That's smart.
Yeah, I go to the last phase, which could last 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Next week, so I might have 4 weeks left. So I've been setting myself up, going to a bunch of meetings. I want to find all the meetings I like to have a set schedule every week.
Awesome.
The things that are non-negotiables.
Yeah.
I'm going here, here, and here. Just have myself set up. I've been doing a lot of speaking. I've gone to rehabs. I spoke at a support group doing this. I've done a few commitments.
Wow.
Just being of service is really helping. And honestly, doing those things, just again, get off on a tangent, is a challenge for me.
Yeah.
Because, I love talking.
Yeah.
I love people hearing me, but when they're seeing a version of me.
Sure.
So to speak vulnerably, honestly, just really bearing what's really happening, what my life really is, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
So people are really receiving it well when I speak. I'm talking to them after hearing their stories, but they don't realize it's doing just as much for me. Just to tell my story, it makes me realize certain things. There's some hard times after you do that.
Yeah.
Like maybe even after this, I'll be thinking about something I talked about here, and you have a hard time. You're basically bringing stuff to the surface, you know.
Sure.
So anyway, my plan after is to, like you said, have a set number of meetings. As I wind down with treatment, that's when the steps are really going to come in. I'm going to really focus on those.
Love it.
Just finding work, repairing relationships. What I want is a set schedule of certain things so I can live life safely besides those things.
Good.
But yeah, I feel like I'm not there yet as far as having a good aftercare plan, but I feel like when I'll be there by the time it's time.
Yeah,
so,
I love that. I think you have a really good start of the schedule.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
It feels like it, yeah. Because when I first went to meetings, man, it was rough. It was crazy because we'd be in group, and I would always feel so comfortable with sharing, and like that's partly due to like you guys and people like you guys in our group though. But I would go to these meetings and I literally would purposely show up 2 minutes before, sneak in, sit down. I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
And then like I would be like, you ever see someone trying to jump into like double dutch?
Yeah.
Like that's how I'd be when it was about like 7 or 8 o'clock. I run out the door.
Dutch.
You know what I mean? I'd be gone, and I couldn't talk. And that over time I got more comfortable, and it was because I wasn't going to be performing for these people I didn't know. I was going to be sharing me.
Yeah.
But over time, I'm meeting people. You know what I mean? Just meeting people, getting numbers, and just sharing myself. And it's getting more and more comfortable. And
Yeah, I have to say, like, sharing is a huge thing. Like, even though how uncomfortable it is, but it's about it's about being uncomfortable, until you start to feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yep.
And, like, it's good to feel uncomfortable, though. Like, it's not obviously comfortable, but you have to feel that, like, because it'll get you to take that step.
100%.
It'll get you to do something scary that you didn't think that you
Absolutely.
would do. But like me, like I speak a lot too, and like I love it. Like I do commitments once a month, but I also I go to like new different things. Like I might have to be pushed a little bit,
Yeah.
but like being able to do that, like, and knowing that you're helping at least one person, or even doing this, like we even said like helping one person is going to be a huge thing, and it's going to go a long way, and that's why we want to do this.
Yeah. You know, one thing, when I heard about you speaking, and it made me realize how much good it is. You know, I was in group, and it was right after you did Move to Heal, and these girls were talking about you, and they didn't even know I knew you, and it was just amazing. Like they were talking about how touched they were by your story, how affected. But the thing that really stuck with me was a new girl who had just come in said, you know, she shared some hard things, and she related it to stuff in her life that she's not able to share, and she said it's like giving her courage to work up to share something.
That's really
and
nice
I was
to
just
hear.
like, that is like, I felt so proud of you.
Oh,
it was
thank
like it was
you.
so amazing. You know, I also remembered when I first got to group, one of our friends shared something very personal about her childhood.
Yeah.
And that sparked me really starting to go in, like, introspective into my own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's so much good.
I feel like you have to hear one thing, because like I heard something from, and it's weird because you would think I would have heard from like another woman, you know, like to share, but like it was actually from a man, and like the way that he shared his experiences, I was like, if he can talk about that stuff,
Yes.
like so can I.
Yes,
you know? So
that's exactly.
it's just, you just have to hear that one person, and that one, and no matter what, you're gonna hear your story, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what they say.
I think we hear so much all the time, especially when we go into recovery. And I'll speak for myself. Like, I've heard the same like sayings over and over again, like one day at a time, you know, and like nothing would click until it fucking clicked for some reason.
Yep.
And it didn't matter like sex, race, friggin' age. None of that shit mattered. It was just like when I was open and ready to fucking receive it the right way is when it clicked.
Yes.
You know, and I still struggle with the fear of speaking at meetings or talking to a newcomer or anything like that, due to like the shame around, am I going to be good enough? Are they going to think this way about me? Am I going to say the right things? Am I going to stumble my words? And all this fear fucking prevents me from doing the uncomfortable thing of getting some things out there that somebody could fucking, it could change their lives. And we take that shit for granted a little bit, I think, because we minimize so much what effect we have on every human that there is out there.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has an effect on the next human.
Agreed.
You know? And, like, at least I do. I minimize how much I affect people in my day-to-day.
Listen, I can't tell you how true that is. It's honestly surprising hearing you say that, you know what I mean? Because one thing, early on when I got into treatment, you brought something up. And you know, just in general, you bring things up that people are feeling and thinking and don't want to say out loud in the group.
Yeah.
And you brought this one topic up, and I remember people kind of got a little uncomfortable. But in my head, I'm like, man, that's where my head was going.
Was it talking about women?
It was talking about the women.
Yeah.
How insecurity affects how you're judging women and looking at them.
Yeah.
And we were in a co-ed group. So immediately, you know, once you say that, what's every woman going to do? How is it judging me?
Yeah.
And the fact that you said it and had the courage to say it, like, that was like such a big moment.
Damn, I wish I was in that group.
Oh my God, because I was like, I remember being like, how I first thought when you said it, I'd never have the courage to say that. But then I went with it that night, and like, why don't I?
Yeah.
Because how everybody responded, it got something going. And I know I'm not the only guy who was like, man, I need to be able to get something. This is a safe space. There's no judgment here. So like, you've done that a few times where I'm like, thank you for saying it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
That's what I love about Steve, though. He's so raw. Like, he
Yep.
can like literally just say whatever is on his mind.
And you're so
But,
charming,
like,
you can get away with it.
I know.
I think for me, like, I've been in recovery, I've been in treatment for so fucking long that, like, if I don't start talking about things that I want to hold back, like, I'm not going to grow. Yeah. And, like, the same thing, I've seen so many people, like, say fucking outlandish shit that I'm thinking or that I've done or that I've had the thought process of doing and thought, I can never fucking say that. Like, fucking kudos, you know?
Yeah.
This certain thing was about how I judge women constantly. Yeah. If I see, it doesn't matter how she looks, her age, her race, anything. If I see a woman, I'm judging them on a scale of like 1 to 10 in so many different categories. Yeah. Like how I'll be raw as fuck. How would they be in bed? How you know, how is their personality? Yep. You know, like what does their mother look like? Like all these crazy fucking categories. And like that's just what goes through my head in 1 second.
Wow.
It's that honesty though that like let me tell you how I related.
I love it.
I related to that, and where I ended up going with it is I realized I'm always judging everybody, but I'm always judging myself, how I look, how people, you know what I mean? Oh. And I realized that, like, I was wondering, I'm like, man, I judge people too, girls and, like, guys, how I stack up to other guys.
Right,
and I was like, why?
Yeah.
But you started that by just bringing that up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but I related to that
and that's
so
another,
much.
like, category. What do they think of me? Yeah. Am I looking good today? How's my hair look? How is my face look? Should I make eye contact? Should I not make eye contact?
It's exhausting.
Should I talk? Should I not talk?
Exhausting.
Like fucking the madness that goes on inside my head about like, and it goes on with males too. You know, like not the how good are they in bed part, but like you know, like how do I present myself? Should I look like mean? Should I look tough? Should I look happy? Should I smile? Should I just like not pay attention to him and maybe he'll think I'm cooler? Like all these fucking things like I'm constantly thinking about. Well, I let me rephrase. Like that was my life thought process for a very long time in my life. Yeah. My thought process about women and other males is totally different today. And I've done so much work to get to where I am. That's awesome. I still have a lot of these, you know, first impression thoughts inside my head. Listen, my thoughts are fucked up. But like what I do with those thoughts is who I am. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned. Yeah. You know, and for me, I've become a lot more okay with who I am. So my judgment of others has diminished fucking tenfold.
Yeah.
I completely relate to that. You know, when I was saying like how I judge myself and I judge other people, you know, it's exhausting. You know, my mind does that about judging people, but it's going like that all the time. But it's always based on insecurity. Sure. And like how and other people's judgment. And one thing I've noticed is like not the voices, but like the noise has gone down a little bit since I'm more comfortable with myself. Yeah. You know what I mean? That stuff is exhausting. Yeah. Absolutely. Like, no wonder why I needed stuff to, like, just to, like, get out of myself and, like, you know, I remember a lot of times feeling I just want to get away from myself. Yeah. You know, like, I'm like, I feel like I'm, like, ADHD out the window, you know, like, just crazy, you know? So, yeah, that, like, just getting more comfortable and not judging myself so much. Because, like, that thought process is just, and still, this is a work in progress. Because first impressions are still very important to me.
Absolutely, of course.
Very important to me. I find myself being fake, being polished. Yeah. And obviously, you don't have to be raw with everybody you meet.
Right, absolutely.
But I think I still take it too far with how people perceive me. Especially, like you said, the first impression.
Yeah. I think, to be honest with you, I don't think some of that shit goes away. Yeah. Like, I don't care how long you have been working on yourself. I think first initial thought, what do they think of me, is a humanistic fucking tendency.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I mean, it's a survival technique almost. Like, is this person in danger? Correct. Like, it's kind of like, we'll go back to caveman time. Like, when they jump out of their fucking cave and look around, like, where's the fucking enemy? Yeah. What's the danger? Yeah. Like, am I fit enough to protect my family? Yeah. Like, how will I protect them? You know, and now translating it to today's day, I walk outside of my house and I defend myself by how do I look today? How am I going to present today? How do I feel today? What am I going to do today to make myself feel better? And things like that, you know?
Yeah, so I agree with you. There's always going to be some of that, and I think some of that might be healthy. With me, I just noticed my life has always been completely unbalanced. And so what I want to do is just get to a point of balance. It's like, what do they say? Progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
But just to a point where, listen, we're all a little bit self-conscious sometimes. We all worry about similar things, but I just don't want it to the point that it always was. So unhealthy, so dangerous, so toxic that I just hated myself.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I think there's always going to be some of that. I just want it to one day be on like a healthy level where I'm just comfortable in my own skin, and I'm actually enjoying. I think about how many moments I've missed in my life, worried about what other people are doing, and I'm missing what's right in front of me. And so if I can get to a point where I'm just enjoying, I'm in the moment, I'm enjoying it, not worried about what this person's thinking or how I look, and just enjoying what's right in front of me, enjoying life, I think I can be happy with that.
What's the one thing that you take away from being at Ocean State? Like, what's the biggest thing that you think that was your, I don't know, I'd say like.
I think it's more of like a state of mind, not just one thing. Just, so if you would have asked me when I was in addiction about how self-aware I was, I would pompously just tell you I'm the most self-aware person ever. You know what I mean? I know why I do things. I do this because of this.
Yeah.
And I realized I was mistaken about probably all of it.
Huh.
So my subconscious, just whatever, my childhood, my history, trauma, whatever, was making me do things, and I didn't know why.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing I'm taking away, I think, is connecting, my subconscious to my conscious. And just knowing why I do what I do. Once I realize the why, I can start controlling the what I do. If my brain was lying to me and I was deceiving myself into why I was doing things, I could never change it. So just being introspective. When I feel an emotion, I allow myself to feel it, and then I'm like, why am I feeling it? And I always thought I was right about everything. If you pissed me off, it's because you did something wrong. And you would have never convinced me otherwise. Yeah. But now, there's been situations this week where I was angry. Someone pissed me off, and I'm like, wait a second. Let's really dig into this. Why am I angry at them? And guess what? It might be something they did, but it's always something in me that, so just being introspective about my thoughts, my feelings, not being ashamed, not being mad at myself that I'm mad, letting myself feel it. Just that introspection and just really wanting to dig, wanting to understand myself, that's something that I took away. I mean, my therapist is amazing, and the group therapy is amazing. Group therapy is amazing. That's something I'm taking away that I want to continue. This will never end. Yeah. I don't want it to end because I'm enjoying it, but I think that's my biggest takeaway from therapy.
I was about to say your therapist must be very proud of you.
I don't know. She never tells me.
Well, CJ, I'd like to thank you personally for coming on twice now. I mean, you continue to, your never-ending search for self-intelligence, self-awareness, self-accountability is infectious, and I'm sure a lot of these newcomers that are coming into the IOP program, you have a role to play there as one of the people that have been there the longest, and I see you growing, from the start to the finish in that program, and then just how you present yourself is so infectious, and I really want to thank you for coming on, and thank you for being a good friend to us, man.
Man, I love you guys. Yeah. Seriously, when you just had your art thing, and when I hear about you guys, and you guys are really affecting people. This is really affecting people. I feel proud that I'm your friend, and just to finish, this is what it's about. The steps are going to help me. Therapy is going to help me. Connection is what's going to keep me sober for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
This is just invaluable. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Growing together. We share ups and downs and just true friendships. I can't thank you guys enough. Like I said, when the first one didn't work out, I was happy because we get to do this again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We get to do it twice. I feel privileged to be able to do it twice.
That's awesome,
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
CJ, thank you so much for coming on. I could talk to you for hours. I really could.
We can do it again one day.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
maybe we'll do it again. I would love that. But yeah, you are fascinating. I love hearing your story. I love talking to you more and more every time. I feel like I get on a deeper connection with you every time I see you. So you have been a great friend. I'm so proud of you for almost finishing OSR.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see where the future holds for you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.